They never told you what was really in the glass you were holding. They dressed it up with glittering lights and toasts of celebration, masking it with culture, tradition, and a false sense of belonging. But what you were consuming wasn't just a drink, it was a distortion of thought, of spirit, and of truth. Alcohol has been portrayed as a tool for relaxation, a lubricant for social ease, but beneath that veil lies something far more insidious. It's not simply about the buzz or the hangover. It's about what happens to your very essence when you allow it into your body. The moment that liquid touches your tongue, something ancient and invisible begins to shift, a subtle unraveling of the boundaries that protect your soul. We've all heard the term spirits used to describe alcohol, and most laugh it off as poetic language or quaint etymology. But what if it wasn't just a clever name? What if it was a whispered warning hidden in plain sight? The roots of the word trace back to an Arabic origin, Al-Kuhl, a word associated not only with distillation, but with the notion of something that consumes the body, a reference to substances used in ancient times to separate, extract, or even dissolve. The same root word was used to describe unseen entities, beings said to thrive on human vitality. And when alcohol enters your system, it does just that. It begins to dissolve the cohesion between mind, body, and soul. You are more than skin and bone. You are frequency, a living, breathing field of energy, humming at a signature vibration that is uniquely yours. Your thoughts carry waves. Your emotions pulse through your body as signals. Your intentions ripple outward, shaping your reality. This field, your aura, is not mythology. It's measurable. It's real. And when it's intact, it protects you. But when you drink, that frequency becomes scrambled, the shield fractures, the alignment falters. And in that moment, you are no longer just vulnerable to poor decisions. You become energetically exposed. Think of it like your internal compass being demagnetized. The pull that guides you, your instincts, your intuition, your higher knowing, all suddenly fade into static. The gut feelings that once warned you are drowned in distortion. You say things you never meant to say. You feel things that don't feel like you. And perhaps most chilling of all, you forget. Not just the night before, but parts of yourself. Memories vanish into fog. You wake up missing hours or entire evenings, as if someone pressed pause on your identity. But that amnesia isn't just chemical. It's spiritual displacement. Your essence, your soul's awareness, had been interrupted. And that's just the surface. What many describe as letting loose or losing control is more accurately a form of spiritual possession. Not in the horror movie sense, but in the real, everyday kind, the one where you say things that didn't come from your heart, or where you act on impulses that feel alien, the one where you look in the mirror and something in your eyes feels absent. Alcohol doesn't just impair, it invites. It welcomes in vibrations, energies, thoughts, even entities that don't belong to you. When your energy field is weakened, you become a beacon for low-frequency forces that feed on chaos, confusion, disconnection. And disconnection is the entire point, because in a disconnected state, you are easier to manipulate. You no longer hear the still, small voice within. You no longer question the lies you're fed. You no longer trust your own guidance. And in that silence, in that spiritual void, external forces step in to fill the space. Commercials tell you who to be. Celebrities model what success should look like. Politicians tell you what matters. But none of it comes from your truth. None of it originates in the sacred space of your soul. Ever notice how alcohol is woven into every ritual of modern life? Weddings, funerals, corporate events, holidays, it's always present. Not because it adds joy, but because it masks emptiness. It gives the illusion of connection while stripping away genuine presence. The toast at the reception isn't about love, it's about numbing the fear. The drink after work isn't about unwinding, it's about escaping. The buzz isn't real happiness, it's a counterfeit, a chemical simulation of joy that evaporates by morning. And then comes the crash. The morning after is more than a hangover. It's a withdrawal from alignment. Your cells feel off. Your thoughts are foggy. Your spirit feels muted. You look in the mirror and something feels dulled. That's your frequency attempting to reassemble itself. That's your energetic system rebooting after being hijacked. But the more often it happens, the harder it becomes to return to center. Your baseline shifts, your clarity fades, your sovereignty erodes. But this isn't just about personal consequences. The widespread use of alcohol serves a much larger agenda. A sedated society doesn't revolt. A distracted populace doesn't demand justice. A spiritually muted public doesn't awaken. Those in power understand this. They know that if you truly saw clearly, if you felt the full force of your spiritual self, you would be unstoppable. And so they keep the taps flowing. They market the bottle as sophistication, the cocktail as culture, the buzz as reward. Meanwhile, your inner fire dims. The industries that thrive off this deception are vast and well connected. Alcohol isn't just a product. It's a pillar of a larger structure. From pharmaceuticals to rehab centers, from law enforcement to advertising, countless systems profit from your dependency. And it's not just your wallet they're draining, it's your agency, because every drink you take isn't just a choice. It's a compromise, a subtle handing over of your power. And the more normalized it becomes, the less likely you are to question it. Let's talk about the pineal gland, that small gland in the center of your brain that many spiritual traditions regard as your inner eye. This tiny structure is responsible for melatonin production, but it's also tied to your perception, your dreams, your sense of timeless knowing. It's the antenna that tunes into the frequencies beyond the five senses. But alcohol calcifies it. Literally, it hardens the tissue, it dims the signal. And what happens when your spiritual antenna is jammed? You lose the ability to see the unseen. You lose the connection to your highest wisdom. You become earthbound in every way, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You may have felt it without realizing. That creeping sense of being lost, unmotivated, unfulfilled. The vague feeling that something's missing, even when life looks fine on paper. That's your soul crying out. That's your inner compass spinning without direction. And too often the answer people turn to is the very poison that caused the disconnection. Another drink, another escape, another numbing agent to quiet the voice within. And let's be clear, this isn't about shame. It's not about guilt. It's about awareness. Because once you see it, you can never unsee it. Once you understand what's at stake, not just your health, but your sovereignty, then the illusion starts to crumble. You begin to question why alcohol is so deeply embedded in our celebrations, in our coping, in our identity. You begin to see how it masquerades as medicine for the very wounds it creates. Alcohol doesn't liberate, it sedates. It doesn't bring people together. It cloaks them in a haze of misunderstanding. It doesn't offer escape, it deepens entrapment. And the more you come into alignment with your truth, the louder that truth becomes. The taste becomes bitter. The buzz feels hollow. The ritual starts to feel more like a prison than a party. And in this awakening, something beautiful happens. The fog begins to lift. The energy within your body flows more freely. Your thoughts become sharper. Your sleep becomes deeper. Your intuition strengthens. And that distant voice, the one you thought you lost, begins to speak again, not in words but in resonance, in clarity, in the quiet knowing that you are whole, you are light, and you were never meant to be muted. This is where the true journey begins, not in denial but in reclamation, not in avoidance but in power. Because every choice to stay sober in a world built to keep you numb is an act of revolution. Every toast you decline, every bottle you leave unopened, every gathering you attend with full presence is a declaration. I will not be seduced. I will not be silenced. I will not forget who I am. You are not your past. You are not your cravings. You are not your culture. You are consciousness in form, a radiant spark of the infinite navigating a temporary world. And nothing should have the right to dim that spark, not tradition, not peer pressure, and certainly not a liquid designed to dull your light. Sobriety isn't a restriction. It's a return to clarity, to sovereignty, to truth. And in that truth, you are more powerful than any system, any substance, any story ever told to keep you small. Let that be the beginning. The illusion doesn't break all at once. It unravels slowly in the quiet moments between the chaos, in the aching spaces left behind after the bottle is empty and the room has gone still. You start to feel it, not in grand revelations, but in subtle dissonance. The laughter that doesn't quite feel like joy, the conversations that drift like smoke, the morning after silence where your soul struggles to find its way back to center. You begin to notice that alcohol doesn't just take away pain, it takes away presence. It blurs not just memories, but meaning. It doesn't heal, it hides. And that's the most dangerous part. It convinces you that you're whole, while it chips away at your foundation, one sip at a time. Ask yourself this: who profits from your disconnection? Who benefits when your mind is foggy, your heart is dulled, and your inner compass spins in circles? The answer is woven into every industry that banks on your sedation, marketing machines that glamorize intoxication, pharmaceutical giants that patch the damage, wellness gurus who sell you remedies for the symptoms alcohol caused in the first place. It's all part of a massive ecosystem that thrives on your spiritual absence. When you're too numb to question, too tired to challenge, and too distracted to awaken, the system remains intact. And the longer you stay in that loop, the more the light within you fades. That's why alcohol is everywhere. It's not a coincidence that it's legal, cheap, and celebrated in nearly every corner of culture. It's not random that entire industries revolve around it. Think about the way society treats sobriety, not as a path to liberation, but as a burden, an oddity, a deviation from the norm. That's because your clarity is a threat. A clear mind is dangerous to those who manipulate. A grounded soul is immovable. An awakened spirit sees through the lies. And so the push continues. Drink to celebrate, drink to grieve, drink to relax, drink to connect. But what if none of those connections are real? What if they're imitations, shadows of something you were meant to feel deeply and authentically? Because when you take alcohol out of the equation, something incredible begins to happen. You start to see people, not just through a haze of performance and projection, but through a lens of truth. You notice the subtle ways we use alcohol to avoid vulnerability, to skip the work of real intimacy. You begin to remember what it's like to be fully present in your body, to trust your instincts without needing external validation. You begin to understand that the social ease alcohol promises comes at the cost of your spiritual integrity. And make no mistake, this isn't about morality, it's about energy. Every choice you make either amplifies your frequency or diminishes it. Alcohol, by its very design, is a frequency-lowering substance. It anchors you to the densest parts of existence, making it harder to rise into your true potential. It may offer temporary freedom, but it steals your sovereignty. that inner knowing, that gut feeling, that flicker of insight, that whisper from your higher self, grows quieter the more you drink. You begin to confuse the voice of the ego with the voice of truth. You lose discernment. And when discernment goes, you become vulnerable to everything from manipulation to spiritual intrusion. Let's talk about that for a moment. Spiritual intrusion isn't the stuff of horror stories. It's a very real, very common experience. When your energetic defenses are down, you're susceptible to influence from forces that don't have your best interests at heart. These energies feed on confusion, fear, sadness, anger, the very emotions alcohol tends to amplify. And because your energy field becomes porous in that state, you invite in what you'd normally repel. This is why people wake up after drinking feeling like strangers in their own skin. It's why they act out of character, do things they would never do sober, feel disconnected from themselves for days after. Their soul stepped aside, even if just a little, and something else slipped in. This isn't fantasy. It's not superstition. It's the reality that many have known for centuries and that modern science is only beginning to catch up with. Your body is a field of light, of electrical pulses, of chemical intelligence operating in exquisite harmony. Alcohol scrambles that signal. It turns your internal GPS into static. And in that static, you become suggestible, not just to marketers and social pressure, but to energies that want your light for themselves. Look deeper into history. Alcohol has always been a tool of suppression. From ancient empires to modern governments, it has been used to pacify populations, to dissolve spiritual practices, to sever the sacred bond between people and their divine nature. Colonizers didn't just bring weapons, they brought liquor. And with every generation that grew dependent, another thread of spiritual wisdom was lost. Rituals became routines. Sacred gatherings turned into excuses to escape. Entire cultures were numbed into forgetting who they were. But you are not meant to forget. You are here to remember, to reawaken, to return to the frequency that is your birthright. And that journey doesn't require some dramatic renunciation or lifelong vow. It begins with one choice, one clear moment, one decision to tune in rather than check out. It begins when you look at a glass of wine or a bottle of beer and ask not what it promises, but what it steals. You don't have to be a monk or a mystic to reclaim your clarity. You just have to be willing to see past the illusion, to stop chasing connection through intoxication, to stop believing that numbness is a form of freedom. Real freedom comes in the stillness, in the quiet confidence of being fully awake, in the grounded power of meeting life exactly as it is, without distortion, without filters, without substances that keep you in a haze of half-truths. And yes, that path might feel lonely at first. You might lose the easy camaraderie of bar nights and parties. You might feel like an outsider. But that's only because the world hasn't caught up yet. More and more people are waking up to this truth every day. They are seeing through the veil. They are choosing presence over performance. They are choosing to live in full color rather than muted tones. And as they do, they're creating a new culture, a culture of clarity, of consciousness, of sacred aliveness. Because sobriety isn't about restriction. It's about restoration. It's about bringing back what was stolen. Your focus, your intuition, your dreams, your energy, your vision. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you that escape was the only answer. It's about finding joy in the raw, unfiltered experience of life. And in that rawness, you find depth, you find meaning, you find yourself. Alcohol's seduction lies in its ability to promise something it can never deliver. It whispers of confidence but erodes it. It offers relief but multiplies pain. It paints itself as celebration but plants seeds of sorrow. And once you see that, truly see it, it loses its grip. You begin to feel the weight it placed on your soul, and you begin to realize just how light you could be without it. That's not to say the journey is easy. Letting go of alcohol means confronting everything it helped you avoid. Your fears, your loneliness, your doubts, your traumas. It means facing life without the buffer, but in that raw space, you rediscover your resilience. You remember how powerful you are when you stand in full awareness. You find that your true self was never something to escape from. It was something waiting patiently beneath the surface, ready to rise. And when it rises, everything changes. You walk differently. You speak with more conviction. You begin to attract people who see you, not the mask you used to wear. Your creativity ignites, your health returns, your mind clears, your spirit expands. You begin to dream bigger, love deeper, live fuller, because you're no longer pouring your energy into a void. You're investing it into your evolution. This is the real story behind the glass, not one of guilt or judgment, but one of awakening, a call to return to yourself, to lift the fog, to honor your light, and to stop giving your power to something that only takes. You don't need a drink to be whole. You don't need a buzz to be brave. You don't need alcohol to feel alive. Everything you've been searching for is already within you. All you have to do is clear the interference. And once you do, once the signal comes through, you'll wonder how you ever believed the lie. ChatGPT said, "You don't wake up all at once. The process of awakening is messy, sometimes painful, often disorienting, especially when you've spent years, maybe even decades, believing the lie that alcohol was your friend, your relief, your bridge to fun, freedom, or confidence. But there comes a day when that same drink you once reached for feels heavier in your hand. Not because the bottle changed, but because something inside you started stirring. A deeper part of you, buried beneath the fog and the static, begins to whisper, 'This isn't who you are.' And that whisper gets louder each time you ignore it, until eventually it becomes a roar that shakes the foundations of everything you thought you needed to survive. What no one tells you is that alcohol doesn't just cloud your mind for a few hours. It alters your relationship with reality. Your perception bends. Your emotions skew. Your connection to the present moment warps. You're not just sipping something fermented, you're swallowing a story that says you can't fully show up unless you're softened by poison, a story that convinces you celebration needs sedation, that grief needs numbing, that connection needs artificial courage. And the more you buy into that story, the more you lose sight of your own. But here's the hard truth. Alcohol never loved you back. It was never your ally. It never held you up. It simply covered your wounds in sugar, then let them fester underneath. It carved gaps in your memory, not to preserve you, but to erase you. It sold you a version of joy that left you empty, and every time you returned to it, hoping for that same relief, it took a little more of you in return. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes the morning after a heavy night of drinking? The sparkle isn't there. The presence is gone. There's a hollow quiet where the soul should be shining. That isn't just exhaustion. That's what it looks like when your spirit has to crawl back from somewhere it didn't belong. The body wakes first, but the essence takes longer. That numbness, that disorientation, that fog, that's your energy field struggling to reassemble itself, trying to recall the harmony that alcohol tore apart. You may think you're choosing alcohol, but what if it's choosing you? What if each time you drink, you're falling back into a program written long before you were born? A pattern passed through generations, reinforced by marketing, normalized by culture, ritualized in media. You think you're exercising free will, but that's the trap. The illusion of freedom is the most sophisticated form of control. You never asked to be part of it. You were born into it, and now, every time you lift that glass, you're agreeing to a system that thrives on your unconsciousness. The most insidious part? It's not just about your body or your brain, it's about your spirit. Alcohol is a direct assault on the sacred. It disrupts the pathways that lead to inner knowing. It fractures the lines that tether you to the divine. It pollutes the inner temple where truth is born. This isn't a metaphor, it's energy. Real, measurable, ancient energy. And when you interfere with it enough times, the distortion becomes your new baseline. You don't even remember what it felt like to be whole. That's why alcohol is so entwined with group behavior. Because it doesn't just isolate you, it synchronizes you to the lowest common frequency. You felt it before. A room full of people drinking doesn't rise in collective joy. It collapses into chaos or repetition or numbness masquerading as celebration. Laughter gets louder but shallower. Conversations become cycles of stories repeated. Boundaries blur. Memory fades. What was meant to be bonding turns into a kind of collective amnesia. The night ends not with insight but with forgetting. In that state, you're easier to manage. Not just by the people in your life, but by the systems that govern them. Think about it. How often are revolutions planned in bars? How many profound ideas are born over beers? How often does someone come home from a night of drinking more inspired, more aligned, more courageous? Rarely, if ever. That's not a coincidence. A population that drinks regularly is easier to pacify, easier to guide, easier to mold. Because alcohol doesn't inspire, it dilutes. It doesn't challenge, it pacifies. It doesn't awaken, it sedates. And yet, they make it look glamorous. They place it in the hands of the heroes you admire, the lovers you envy, the icons you emulate. You've seen the scenes, champagne showers at high society parties, whiskey shared over secrets, wine as the gateway to romance. But those are scenes, not reality. They are scripts written by people who understand that symbolism is the most powerful tool of persuasion. And they know that if they can anchor your fantasies to alcohol, they can sell you emptiness wrapped in elegance. The consequences go far beyond the individual. Alcohol has devastated entire communities. It was used to colonize, to pacify, to dismantle spiritual traditions. Indigenous cultures around the world were seduced and destroyed by it. And that pattern continues today, disguised as choice, painted as privilege. You're told it's your decision, your right, your indulgence. But what if it's none of those things? What if it's a leash you've been taught to decorate? Even your brain, the most powerful organ in your body, is compromised. The prefrontal cortex, where your highest reasoning lives, where morality and foresight and critical thinking reside, begins to shut down when you drink, not over time, immediately. One drink is all it takes to start silencing your deepest truths. It's like putting the pilot of an airplane to sleep and hoping autopilot will land you safely. But there's no autopilot for the soul. And once you're unconscious, you're open to suggestion from everything around you. Media, groupthink, impulse, and worse. And it doesn't end when the night does. That suppression echoes through your days, dulling your reactions, numbing your instincts. You might get used to it, might not even notice. But that's the trap. The longer you stay in that fog, the more familiar it becomes. You begin to mistake it for peace, for balance, for life. And the more you normalize it, the harder it is to break free. But breaking free is possible. Not just possible, it's transformative. When you stop drinking, the world doesn't shrink, it expands. Your senses sharpen, your thoughts find clarity, your creativity returns, your body begins to speak in subtle signals again. telling you what it needs, what it fears, what it craves in its purest form. Your dreams become vivid. Your emotions, though intense at first, become teachers rather than tormentors. And your spirit, it begins to stretch again, to take up space, to rise. You'll start to notice things you never saw before, not because they weren't there, but because you were too muted to perceive them. The way your breath moves, the way music touches your skin, the way silence feels full, not empty. You remember how to sit with yourself without needing to change the channel. And in that stillness, truth returns. And so does power. Power isn't loud. It isn't aggressive. It isn't about control over others. Real power is presence. The kind that doesn't need distraction to feel whole. The kind that walks into a room and doesn't seek approval because it already knows who it is. That's the power sobriety unlocks. That's the version of you waiting beneath the surface, behind the haze, underneath the stories you've been told. You won't get there overnight. Unlearning takes time. Reclaiming your energy requires patience. But every moment you spend sober is a signal to the universe. I'm ready. I'm listening. I remember who I am, and the universe will answer. In signs, in synchronicities, in subtle shifts that guide you toward the path you were meant to walk before alcohol dimmed your light. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're waking up. And that awakening might look like loneliness at first, like boredom, like awkward social encounters. But keep going. On the other side of that discomfort is a version of yourself so clear, so rooted, so luminous that you'll wonder how you ever lived in the fog for so long. The bottle doesn't hold your freedom. It holds your forgetting, your peace, your joy, your connection. Those don't live in liquid. They live in you. Always have, always will. ChatGPT said, "The light at the end of the tunnel isn't neon. It doesn't flicker from behind a bar counter or shimmer in a glass raised during a toast. It pulses quietly, steadily, from somewhere deep inside you, a place you may have forgotten, but which never stopped glowing. And as the fog begins to lift, as the illusions melt away, you start to remember what that light felt like. Not the artificial warmth of a buzz, but the unmistakable fire of presence, of power, of being fully alive without filters. You begin to see through the performance, the conditioning, the narratives designed to keep you small, silent, and spinning in circles. And what you see once your eyes truly open cannot be unseen. The ritual of raising a glass was never just about the liquid inside. It was about identity, about conformity, about the quiet fear of standing out. For so long you drank not because you wanted to, but because you were taught that refusing was rebellion, that to abstain was to be boring, prudish, difficult. But that script was never yours. It was handed to you, written by forces who benefit from your sedation, rehearsed in advertisements, reinforced in film, echoed at every family function, holiday gathering, and corporate event. But the moment you step off that stage and lay down the mask, the truth hits hard. You were never meant to play that part. Look around at the world with new eyes. Can you see the patterns now? How deeply alcohol has been stitched into the fabric of society, not as celebration, but as control. The way it's marketed as relaxation after stress, connection after loneliness, courage after silence. But those aren't solutions. They're symptoms. Symptoms of a system that trains you to numb instead of feel, to escape instead of grow, to comply instead of question. And alcohol is one of its sharpest tools, not because it's the strongest, but because it hides in plain sight, accepted, legal, encouraged. You can trace its influence in every corner of modern life. The way it hijacks youth culture, selling rebellion while delivering obedience. The way it infiltrates spiritual communities, cloaked as sacred wine but acting as a sedative to insight, the way it masquerades as healing in times of grief, connection in moments of celebration, even creativity in artistic spaces. But alcohol doesn't create, it distorts. It doesn't elevate, it compresses. It doesn't liberate, it leashes. And what's most heartbreaking is how many people never even realize what they've lost. The dreams abandoned, the relationships strained, the creativity stifled, all slowly sacrificed at the altar of a substance that promises everything but delivers only dependence. Some spend years blaming themselves, thinking they lack discipline or willpower. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. The game was rigged from the start. You were targeted. You were conditioned. You were offered a poison wrapped in celebration and told it was part of becoming an adult, a way to bond, a path to relief. But now you know. And that knowing is the first spark of revolution, not just against alcohol, but against everything it represents. Because once you break free from the grip of that liquid illusion, other illusions start to crack as well. You begin to question more, to trust yourself more, to return to the body, to the breath, to the silence you once feared. And in that silence, something sacred awakens, a voice that was never truly gone, only buried, a wisdom that was waiting patiently beneath the noise. Sobriety isn't just about saying no to alcohol. It's about saying yes to everything else. Yes to clarity. Yes to intuition. Yes to wholeness. Yes to the raw, unfiltered, sometimes painful but always honest experience of being alive. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to dim. It's about reclaiming every part of yourself that you abandoned to fit in, to survive, to belong. This path isn't always easy. There will be moments when the old habits whisper your name, when the world around you insists that you're missing out. But what you're actually doing is stepping into your power, your truth, your light. And that's terrifying to those who benefit from your silence. They don't want you clear-headed. They don't want you aligned. They don't want you sovereign. Because a sovereign soul is ungovernable. It cannot be herded, bought, or broken. The culture of alcohol is a culture of delay, delaying healing, delaying purpose, delaying awakening. It keeps you just busy enough, just foggy enough, just detached enough to miss the life that is trying to reach you. But you are not here to sleepwalk. You are here to blaze, to awaken, to love with both eyes open, to cry without numbing, to celebrate without chemicals, to grieve without suppression, to create not from distortion but from divine alignment. And the irony is, when you give up alcohol, you don't lose pleasure, you amplify it. Food tastes better, music feels deeper, sleep becomes healing again, conversations gain texture, laughter becomes real, love becomes clearer, your energy becomes magnetic, your dreams return, your spirit dances, and life, stripped of its filters, becomes breathtaking in its vividness. Even your biology begins to change. Your brain starts to heal, your nervous system settles, your hormones stabilize, your cells begin to regenerate. You no longer operate in survival mode. You begin to thrive. Your capacity to handle challenge expands, your memory sharpens, your immune system strengthens, your sleep deepens, your body remembers what vitality feels like, and your spirit remembers what it means to be free. That's the hidden secret they never wanted you to discover. Sobriety is power. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that radiates from within. The kind that transforms rooms, lifts others, and speaks truth without apology. The kind that doesn't just awaken the individual but the collective, because every soul that breaks free from the alcohol spell adds to the ripple, and that ripple becomes a wave of clarity, a wave of return, a wave of revolution. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be enlightened. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to question, willing to listen, willing to choose presence over performance, willing to sit with discomfort long enough for it to alchemize into strength. And from that strength, everything shifts. Somewhere inside you, you've always known this, that your light was never meant to be dimmed, that your truth was never meant to be drowned, that your joy was never meant to be outsourced. You were not born to escape, you were born to embody, to anchor divinity into flesh, to walk through this world with your soul intact. And now you're ready to return to that sacred truth, ready to remember the version of you that doesn't need external permission to shine, ready to rebuild a life that doesn't revolve around sedation but radiance, ready to walk forward, not as a shadow of your potential, but as the full expression of it. The systems will still push, the ads will still seduce, the parties will still carry their rituals, but you will see them for what they are, not as enemies, but as echoes of an old world you no longer belong to. You will smile with compassion, knowing that others are still on their path, but you've chosen yours, not because you have to, but because you've remembered that you're worth it. The path of clarity is not a punishment, it is a pilgrimage. And every sober step is a return to the temple within. With each breath, with each sunrise, with each quiet night under the stars, you come home. Not to a place, but to yourself. And in that home you are whole, you are strong, you are sovereign. So let the bottle go. Let the programming unravel. Let the fog lift, and let yourself rise. Your true life, the one you were always meant to live, is waiting.